Little is known about BLINSTON's childhood. Born in California on August 26, 1983, he first came to attention of law enforcement in 2006 when BLINSTON, then 22, stole a black Ford Explorer in Hanover, New Hampshire, and kept it in his possession for 3 days. He was convicted on a felony theft charge. He moved back to California afterwards, where, in 2013, he burglarized 3 homes, stealing 3 guns and a Lexus. He was imprisoned for these crimes at Pleasant Valley State Prison in Coalinga, California. On the morning of May 23, 2020, BLINSTON broke into the Los Molinos home of Lorene Severs, 88, and Homer Severs, 91. After locating them in the house, BLINSTON cut the throats of the couple, killing Lorene Severs and injuring Homer Severs. 5 days prior to the attack, BLINSTON did tree trimming work at the Severs house as part of his landscaping job. GPS evidence indicated that BLINSTON returned to the house the evening before the murders in what the police described as a scouting trip. BLINSTON then returned to his home in Oroville. Then, on June 4, 2020, BLINSTON did tree trimming work as part of a landscaping team serviced at the Oroville home of Sandra George, 82. After the landscaping crew left, BLINSTON went back to the home by himself and fatally stabbed Sandra George in the throat. Her body was found at 5 p.m. the following day. 2 days later, on June 6, 56-year-old Vicki Klein was last seen alive with Ryan BLINSTON in downtown Oroville. On the same day, Klein's car was set on fire between Pine Street and Robinson Street in Oroville. An investigation revealed that the car had been deliberately set ablaze with an accelerant. On June 21, 2020, Vicki Klein's remains were found by a fisherman in the Feather River near Belden, California. Like the other victims, her throat was slashed. Authorities forensically matched blood and DNA found on BLINSTON's car to Vicki Klein. After a week of searching, the Butte County SWAT team located his whereabouts on June 14, 2020, a motorhome in a wooded area of Brush Creek, California. When the SWAT team arrived, they found BLINSTON trying to break into the home with a hatchet. BLINSTON then ran into the forest, but was caught shortly after. The owner of the motorhome was a 50-year-old man who allowed BLINSTON to stay at the home overnight. After the man went to sleep, he woke up to BLINSTON attacking him with a knife. Despite being stabbed in the throat, the man was able to fight off BLINSTON and lock him out. After BLINSTON walked away from the motorhome to retrieve a hatchet, he returned and tried to break into the house again. The man was seriously injured, but survived. BLINSTON was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, arson, and resisting arrest, to which he pleaded not guilty. BLINSTON's trial started on May 2, 2022. Hundreds of pieces of evidence in the forms of photographs, diagrams, phone data, business records, and surveillance videos were presented to the jury. Additionally, 35 witnesses testified against BLINSTON. Ryan BLINSTON himself did not testify. He was found guilty on all charges on August 4, 2022, and received 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole. D'Angelo Martin was born on May 30, 1985, in Detroit, Michigan. During his childhood, he lived in a rough area and became involved with criminal activity. His mother, Chantrienne Barker, was sentenced to life in prison for kidnapping and murder in 1998. After his mother's arrest, Martin was raised by his father. Martin attended Kettering High School, graduating in 2003. According to unconfirmed reports, after graduating from high school, he studied at Wayne University but never graduated. After the death of his father, Martin lived with his paternal grandparents. He had problems finding employment and experienced financial difficulties as a result. In February 2018, Martin lured Annette Nelson, 57, to an abandoned house on Winthrop Street, where he assaulted and strangled her to death. Her body was discovered on February 26 by a local homeless man who dragged her body out of the home and onto the sidewalk. The homeless man was initially charged with her murder, but later proven innocent by CCTV footage. In March 2019, Martin met 52-year-old Nancy Harrison. After the two did drugs together, he lured her to another abandoned house, where he assaulted her and bludgeoned her to death. Her body was discovered on March 19, 2019. At the end of April on the same year, Martin assaulted and murdered 52-year-old Travison Ellis after luring her to another abandoned home. Her decomposed body was found on May 24, 2019. On May 6, 2019, Martin met a 26-year-old woman at a drug den and invited her back to his residence, where he assaulted her and stabbed her in the neck. However, the victim fought back, attracting the attention of Martin's grandmother, who called the police. Martin managed to escape before the police arrived and was put on a wanted list. On June 3, 2019, Martin dragged a woman into an abandoned house and attempted to assault her. However, the victim defended herself, stabbing him multiple times. He again fled the scene and murdered 55-year-old Tamara Jones, whose body was later discovered in another abandoned building. Martin posed all of his victims in humiliating ways. He also left used condoms containing biological fluids near each crime scene and stole a sock from every victim. D'Angelo Martin was arrested at a Detroit bus stop on June 7, 2019. He was subsequently charged with assault and attempted murder in connection to the May 6 attack. After the second surviving victim identified him as her attacker, police took blood and saliva samples from Martin, which linked him to the four murders. Police searched over 3,000 abandoned houses in Detroit in search of more potential victims of his. He also became a suspect in several other murders, including that of Deborah Reynolds, who was last seen alive with Martin in a 7-Eleven. In December of 2018, her body was later discovered in a vacant home. In December 2019, Martin's lawyers filed a petition for a psychological examination, which found Martin to be sane and subject to criminal liability. His trial began on August 20, 2020. In September 2022, Martin accepted a plea deal, which stated that if he pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder and 2 counts of rape, he would be sentenced to 45 to 70 years in prison instead of receiving a life sentence. Martin was sentenced on October 6, 2022, and is now imprisoned in the Richard Handlin Correctional Facility. Kenyal William Brown was born on July 3, 1979, into a large family with several brothers and sisters. He spent his childhood and youth in the city of River Rouge, where he attended the local River Rouge High School. In his school years, Brown, who was physically capable and athletically gifted, became a successful basketball player. In his teens, he developed a drug addiction, which caused a drastic change in his personality. Between 1997 and 2019, Brown was arrested and imprisoned several times. In August 1997, Kenyal Brown was arrested on charges of attacking a person with a weapon. He was convicted and given a year of imprisonment, which he served at the Wayne County Prison. He was released in 1998, but rearrested the following March for illegal carrying of weapons and resisting arrest. He pleaded guilty and was conditionally sentenced to 4 years imprisonment, but in October 1999 was arrested yet again for the illegal possession of a taser and attempting to sell it. After this arrest, he began to cooperate with investigators in a plea agreement, agreeing to plead guilty in exchange for testifying against other inmates, so that the charges against him would be dropped and he could be released. In September 2000, Brown was arrested for drug possession and attempting to sell them, but was released yet again after he provided some information on crimes committed in the county. In February 2001, Brown became the cause of an accident during which one person died and another was seriously injured. He tried to flee the crime scene, but was arrested soon after and charged with second-degree murder, resisting arrest, intentionally inflicting moderate injury resulting in death, driving without a license, and illegal weapons possession. He was convicted and received 10 years imprisonment, but was paroled in 2010. In June 2014, Brown was arrested in Detroit for illegal possession of weapons. During his detention, he called himself in his dead brother's name and stated that he was suffering from a mental disorder. In March 2015, Brown was recruited by agents of the Bureau for Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, working as an informant for 5 consecutive years. Based on the provisions of the Armed Career Criminal Act, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, but in June 2015, the Supreme Court recognized some of the law's provisions as unconstitutional, due to which Brown pleaded guilty and received 21 years imprisonment, with a trial period of 2 years. In February 2017, after serving 14 months in prison, he was released, but was rearrested for parole violation in May of that year and returned to prison. Thanks to intervention from the federal agency, however, he was released in July. Over the following years, Brown repeatedly violated parole conditions, but each time avoided criminal liability due to his position as an FBI informant. In July 2018, he was arrested for drunk driving in Lincoln Park, later testing positive during a drug test. In January 2019, he was once again arrested for drug intoxication, after which he was ordered to attend a narcologist regularly by the court. He missed 4 scheduled sessions, after which an arrest warrant was issued on February 22, 2019. Brown was arrested a month later and charged with violating his parole. In May, he was prescribed compulsory treatment for drug addiction, after which he transferred to a drug treatment clinic in Madison Heights, where he spent 21 days and was released on June 12. 2 weeks later, he was arrested in Hazel Park for drunk driving, but quickly released on October 29 due to intervention by a Detroit police officer serving on a federal task force. The murders began on December 7, 2019, when Brown shot dead 31-year-old Lauren Haddington in River Rouge. On January 30, 2020, Brown visited some friends from his youth, 48-year-old Dorian Patterson and his brother Gerald, with whom he drank alcohol. After Gerald left the house and went to work, 52-year-old Kimberly Green and 44-year-old Clifton Smith came by the house. Late in the evening, a quarrel occurred between the pair and Brown, who proceeded to shoot and kill Green and Patterson, as well as non-lethally wounding Smith, who managed to leave the crime scene and report the incident to the police. Based on his testimony and that of Gerald Patterson, Kenyal Brown was put on the wanted list. On February 18, Brown shot and killed 49-year-old Garcias Woodyard in Highland Park while trying to rob him. 2 days later, 41-year-old Amir Thaxton was shot dead inside of his clothing store in Detroit, with his money, valuables, and caravans stolen after. Thaxton was familiar with Brown. On the day of the murder, he was recorded visiting him on video surveillance, as well as his car, and on this basis, became a suspect in his murder. 2 days after, Brown shot dead 36-year-old Eugene Jennings while trying to steal a car. According to the investigators, he was his last known victim. On February 24, 2020, Brown was seen visiting an adult bookstore in Oak Park. He was identified by 2 employees who called the police. Brown was unable to escape in time, as the police soon cordoned off several blocks and began a search operation to detain him. Brown attempted to sneak away by moving through houses, but was spotted by tenants, after which he was surrounded by law enforcement officers in a backyard. While trying to detain him, Brown attempted suicide by shooting himself in the head. He remained alive, but due to complications, he died 4 days later on February 28. Retta Mays was born in Reynoldsville, West Virginia in 1975. She was a United States Army West Virginia National Guard veteran who served from November 2000 to April 2001 and again from February 2003 to May 2004, when she deployed to Iraq and Kuwait with the 1092nd Engineer Battalion. Prior to beginning her employment as a nursing assistant at the Lewis A. Johnson Veterans Medical Center, Mays had worked as a corrections officer at the West Virginia Department of Corrections at North Central Regional Jail in Greenwood, West Virginia, between 2005 and 2012. In 2013, Mays was one of several defendants in a lawsuit that was brought by an inmate incarcerated at the jail who alleged that he had been repeatedly beaten by Mays and other correction officers. The lawsuit was dismissed on summary judgment. Mays was a longtime member of Monroe Chapel United Methodist, a small church approximately 20 minutes outside Clarksburg in Lost Creek. In June 2015, Mays began working as a nursing assistant at the Lewis Johnson Veterans Medical Center in Clarksburg, West Virginia, with no certification or license to care for patients. Nursing assistants at the VAMC are not qualified or authorized to administer any medication to patients, including insulin. Mays was assigned to work overnight shifts on Ward 3A of the hospital's medical surgical unit in July 2017, when elderly patients began suffering mysterious acute drops in their blood sugar level. Over the course of 11 months, hospital staff eventually attributed the deaths of several patients on the ward to hypoglycemia. Many of the deaths were of individuals who were not insulin dependent. 4 of the deaths occurred within 16 days. One patient, Archie Edgel, an 84-year-old Korean War veteran, initially suffered a drop in his blood sugar to 24. A reading of less than 70 is low and can be harmful. He was stabilized by staff, only to die after another plummet of his blood sugar a short time later. An autopsy later found that Edgel had been injected 4 times. The hospital began an internal investigation of 11 deaths. Mays was fired from the hospital in June 2018, and the investigation was turned over to the Inspector General for the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The investigation into the deaths of the elderly military veterans began in June 2018 and lasted over 2 years. Mays remained free. She was questioned 3 times during the course of the investigation. Each time, she denied any involvement in the deaths. Mays's second interview was conducted by a special agent from the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, and lasted 5 hours. By then, investigators had built up a strong circumstantial case against Mays, including her internet search history of female serial killers, her Netflix viewing of the series Nurses Who Kill, one episode of which focused on insulin killings, and phone calls made by Mays to her husband, Gordon, who was serving time in jail for child pornography charges in which she bemoaned having to sit with a patient that she wanted to freaking strangle. Investigators stated that call had been made the morning after one of the blood sugar episodes. During another call to her husband, Mays complained of soreness in her arms from having to do compressions on a patient who, she felt, had no quality of life, adding that if the staff would have just said DNR he would have went to sleep when his sugar dropped down to 30. The investigation involved more than 300 interviews, the review of phone, social media, and computer records, the review of thousands of pages of medical records and charts, hours of consulting with forensic experts and endocrinologists, the exhumation of some of the bodies of those who were deemed to have died suspiciously, and the review of thousands of hospital staff and visitor records to assess their potential interactions with the deceased. A person of interest was officially identified in the autumn of 2019. The person's name was not disclosed, but authorities later stated that Mays had been a person of interest from the beginning. In July 2020, Mays was arrested and charged with the murders of 8 individuals. The charges were later reduced to 7 second-degree murders and 1 count of intent to commit murder involving the death of the 92-year-old United States Navy veteran, Russell Posey Sr., who died 2 weeks after he had been injected with insulin. Prosecutors stated that there were approximately 20 suspicious deaths while Mays worked at the hospital, but charges were brought only for the cases that were believed to have sufficient evidence. On July 14, 2020, Mays pleaded guilty in the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of Clarksburg to 7 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. By pleading guilty to all of the charges, Mays waived the right to have the case presented to a grand jury. Mays wept openly in court and admitted that she had murdered the patients. Mays offered no motive but claimed to be taking medication for post-traumatic stress disorder. She was held in custody at the West Virginia Regional Jail and Correctional Facility until her sentencing. An interview with Mays after her guilty plea was included in a report released after the sentencing by the Department of Veterans Affairs Office of Inspector General that detailed deficiencies at the hospital. In it, she stated she administered the insulin to patients that she believed were suffering so that they could pass away gently. She also stated that she had great stress and chaos in both her personal and professional life and that her actions gave her a sense of control. On May 11, 2021, Mays was sentenced to 7 consecutive life sentences, plus 20 years, during a 3-hour-long hearing the United States District Court for the Northern District of West Virginia in Clarksburg by U.S. District Judge Thomas Klee. Mays is ineligible for parole. During the sentencing, Mays, in tears, gave a brief statement. "There's no words I can say that can offer the families any comfort. I can only say I'm sorry for the pain I caused them and my family." In addition to her sentence, Mays was ordered to pay $172,624.96 to the victims' families, the VA hospital, Medicare, and insurance companies. The judge, speaking directly to Mays, stated, "Several times your counsels made the point that you shouldn't be considered a monster. Respectfully, I disagree with that. You are the worst kind. You're the monster that no one sees coming." In July 2021, Mays was transferred to the low-security Federal Correctional Institution, Aliceville, in Alabama. U.S. District Judge Thomas Klee had initially recommended that Mays be placed at Federal Medical Center, Carswell, in Fort Worth, Texas, so that she could receive mental health treatment there. Since Mays' guilty pleas, the federal government has settled civil lawsuits with the families of 10 victims. He was born on June 5, 1971, in El Salvador, where he spent his childhood and youth in poverty as a result of the football war. In the mid-1980s, Escobar illegally emigrated to the United States, but was arrested in early 1988 and thereafter deported by ICE officers in February of that year. In the early 1990s, he returned to the USA again, settling in the home of some relatives in Houston. From 1992 until his arrest in 2018, Escobar was repeatedly arrested on charges ranging from burglary, assault, and criminal trespassing. From 1995 to 2000, he was incarcerated in a Texas prison for theft before being deported back to El Salvador. The following year, he once again returned but was rearrested in November for a minor offense and illegal entry, for which he was convicted and sentenced to 23 months imprisonment. While serving his sentence, Escobar was diagnosed with schizophrenia and transferred to the Harris County Psychiatric Center, where he remained for several months. In total, from the period of 1997 to 2011, Escobar was deported from the United States a total of 6 times. In 2012, Escobar made another attempt to enter the U.S., but was caught by border security in Brownsville. While in the county jail, he began to show signs of mental instability, due to which he was interned at a psychiatric hospital in Springfield, Missouri. After the treatment was complete, Escobar was extradited to Brownsville and put on trial. In October 2013, he was convicted and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. After serving the sentence, he was deported yet again but returned soon afterward. Upon re-entering, Escobar appealed his immigration case and applied for political asylum, which subsequently granted him permanent residency in January 2017. He then moved into his uncle and aunt's house in Houston, where he found work as a day laborer, but occasionally supplemented his income with petty thefts. In November 2017 and February 2018, he was arrested twice more for trespassing and theft, but was not brought to trial and got away with paying a fine. Despite his repeated criminal behavior, Escobar was not known as a violent individual, and most of his friends and acquaintances spoke positively of him. The murders began on August 26, 2018, when Escobar beat to death his 65-year-old uncle, Rogelio, with a police baton at his house in Houston. After the murder, he did not take measures to cover up the crime, but only disposed of his uncle's corpse. He then left Rogelio's backpack, shoes, and shirt on the porch of the house, which aroused the suspicion of his aunt, 60-year-old Dina. 2 days later, she started searching for her brother, but before the trip, Escobar snuck inside her minivan. During a car stop in a suburb of Houston, he attacked Dina and subsequently strangled her. Following the murders, Escobar dumped his relatives' bodies in 2 separate dumpsters, with their skeletal remains being found 2 months later in a landfill. He then stole his aunt's van and traveled to Galveston, where he left it at a beach, and set it on fire to cover up his crimes. Several acquaintances of Rogelio and Dina Escobar contacted the police after their disappearances, as a result of which, Ramon was detained for interrogation on August 30th. However, as authorities had no evidence to charge him with any crime at the time, he was released. Soon after, Escobar fled the state and drove with his 2004 Honda CR-V to California. Over the next few weeks, he lived in various homeless encampments around Los Angeles, blending in with local transients and drifters. In the early hours of September 8th, Escobar attacked a homeless man while he was sleeping on a beach in Santa Monica. Despite being repeatedly beaten with a baseball bat and sustaining severe head injuries, the victim survived the assault. 2 days later, Escobar attacked another homeless man, 51-year-old Juan Antonio Ramirez, who also suffered a head injury. However, unlike the previous victim, Ramirez fell into a coma and subsequently died in January 2021. During the early morning hours of September 16th, Escobar attacked 3 sleeping homeless men in downtown Los Angeles with his baseball bat, robbing them afterwards. 2 of the men, 24-year-old Braden Ridout and 59-year-old Kelvin Williams, died, while the third victim, 23-year-old Tyvon Harmon, survived. At the time of the murders, Escobar was recorded by the CCTV of a nearby building, which enabled law enforcement to make a facial composite of him. In it, the then unknown assailant was described as a white or Hispanic male in his 30s or 40s, of average build and height and with medium-length black hair. One notable feature was that he apparently had a noticeable gait due to the curvature of his legs. On September 20th, Escobar carried out another attack under the Santa Monica Pier, during which he beat to death 39-year-old Stephen Ray Cruz. Unlike previous victims, Cruz was not homeless and lived with his parents in San Gabriel. According to family members, he had gone to Santa Monica to fish and had apparently decided to spend the night there. In the aftermath of the murder, police were unable to locate any witnesses to the crime. 4 days later, Escobar attacked 63-year-old Jorge Martinez on a street in downtown Los Angeles, beating him on the head with a baseball bat. The incident had several witnesses who reported it to the police, resulting in Martinez being driven to a local hospital. However, he slipped into a coma and died on September 30th. Mere minutes after the assault on Martinez, Escobar was caught by police officers. After his arrest, police searched the interior of his car, where they found the baseball bat and a pair of bolt cutters. As Escobar heavily resembled the facial composite of the man wanted in other murders, he was subsequently named the prime suspect. Not long after, investigators from Houston also announced that he was suspected in the murders of his uncle and aunt, whose remains had been found in a landfill outside the city. In early October, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office charged Escobar with 4 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, and 4 counts of robbery. Further investigation revealed that he was responsible for many other attacks, with his victims suffering from various degrees of injury. On November 8th, Escobar was formally charged with the murders and the remaining charges, to which he pleaded not guilty. In December 2018, Escobar, who was detained at the Los Angeles County Jail, was visited by investigators from the Houston Homicide Unit. During his conversation with them, Escobar confessed to killing his aunt and uncle and described what had transpired. As a result, he was subsequently charged with their murders as well. In mid-2019, Escobar's attorneys filed a motion for a psychiatric evaluation, which the court granted. In September, the minor son of Cruz filed a lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles citing negligence regarding his father's death. On October 17th of that year, Escobar was judged to be sane and thus eligible to stand trial. Due to several delays caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, Escobar's trial was delayed until early 2022. During said trial, he was offered a plea bargain from the attorney's office. In exchange for the state dropping the death penalty, he would plead guilty to all charges and be sentenced to several life terms without parole. Escobar accepted, and on May 6, 2022, his sentence was subsequently handed down. Escobar claimed that he had committed the murders out of personal animosity and financial hardship. When it came to the murder of his uncle, he claimed it was the result of an argument during which Rogelio belittled him for his lifestyle. Since his conviction, Escobar was moved to the North Kern State Prison in Delano to serve out his sentence. He shared a cell with 53-year-old Juan Villanueva, who was serving a life sentence for aggravated sexual assault of a minor. On February 24, 2023, Villanueva was found unresponsive in his cell and was pronounced dead a short time later. Escobar has been detained on suspicion of killing him, and the incident is currently being investigated by the prison authorities.